Well, ARM Holdings shares under pressure today after its full year guidance missing the street's expectations and fueling concerns about the AI slowdown and companies taking a hit. For what investors need to know, Kimberly Forrest, Bokeh Capital Partners founder and chief investment officer. Kimberly, it's great to see you again. So let's start with what we were just hearing from Jared and kind of comparing that to what is playing out. It seems to be within the AI space right now, because ARM was the latest company to not really live up to those sky-high expectations when it comes to some of those tech leaders, when it comes to the AI space. And yet we've seen this rotation into a more defensive type setup when you take a look at the outperformance of utilities and consumer staples. What does that then signal to you at this point in terms of that market rotation?
Sure. Well, it's a couple of things. Probably the biggest thing that is in every investor's mind is AI for real, right? Because we've now had Intel, AMD, and ARM all kind of disappoint, especially with respect to the amount of their revenue coming from AI. And if you are a longtime technology watcher, this should not be a surprise to you, because technology doesn't spend whenever it's being developed solely just moving upwards and to the right at a 45-degree angle, right, on revenue. That doesn't happen. It's more lumpy. Companies will build out a data center and then pause, and then build some more and pause. And we might be hitting this. We'll know whenever NVIDIA reports next week. But I don't think you should throw in the towel. Now, as for the defensives, it does feel like people are anticipating a recession, and they often do pile into consumer staples and utilities thinking, well, the consumer has to buy those.
You know, one of the common threads that we've heard for companies that are most benefiting from generative AI right now is that they're all going to continue to invest aggressively. And for Meta Platforms, I think what they said on theirs was, look, this first quarter just shows one instance of how we're going to continue that incremental investment going forward. Are we witnessing right now perhaps I don't want to say the first cracks in the generative AI trade, because it still is an investment that these companies are putting forward, but when should investors expect some of those investments, the CapEx, to actually pay off?
Sure. Well, I mean, you bring up an excellent point. Right now, people have been solely able to invest by investing in NVIDIA. I mean, let's just call it for what it is, right? And some of the other semis got a boost from it. But as I said, building out the data center is part of it. Then you're going to have companies like Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon, and everybody else is going to pile in and start using the generative AI to maybe increase productivity. So I think that's an excellent question that you ask. And I would look for, who do you think is most likely to benefit from using generative AI? And we've just mentioned them, right? Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft. And to me, Microsoft is really probably the best position, because they'll get people to actually pay for it, not just advertising dollars. So companies who want to write better emails or sift through, their stores of knowledge and figure out what they have in their databases can use generative AI to mine that and maybe become a better, more productive company.
Kimberly, how much does Fed cutting play into this? Or is this a sector, just given the hype, given the excitement, and given those real use cases, at least for some of these names, that it almost doesn't matter really what the Fed does in the short term?
Well, I think if you're a short-term investor, you don't really care what the Fed is doing. I mean, you'd like a rate cut for sure, because that would help out your multiple and your discounted cash flow, and all the math behind it rests on that 10-year bond and what it trades at, the U.S. Treasury 10-year. That being said, I prefer to be a much longer-term investor than the next 10 minutes or even the next year, because it does take time for AI and a whole lot of trends to kind of play out through the investing timeline.
Kimberly Forrest, who is the Bokeh Capital Partners founder and chief investment officer. Kim, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.